How we doing, folks? Welcome into week 4 of the prep football season. I'm Jason Blakeney, and with me is Brady Amon. And Brady, interesting week for us. Start of district play in most districts, but we'll start off with 3 games that are not district games. Catholic travels to Crestview, Northview travels to South Walton, and Jay travels to Flomaton, Alabama. Again, none of these district games, but what can these 3 teams, what can they take out of these? What can they learn?
Well, the funny thing is all 3 of them in the same situation, all coming off losses. Obviously Catholic High coming off of a tough loss to Pensacola, a team that's, obviously much more talented than them as far as just from a depth standpoint. But they gained a lot out of that one. So this is kind of for them to kind of get back on the winning track. We know that they're going to have a pretty good season. It seems like they have a pretty good team. So it's just for them to get back on the winning track. Northview kind of wants to right some wrongs, so to speak, because last week they had all those turnovers and lost to Chipley. So they kind of just want to kind of get things going again. And Jay's just a team that struggled the last 2 weeks and just kind of wants to get some confidence back after that 1 week. The opener where they ended up with a big win. They've kind of lost the last 2. So they just kind of want to regain some of that confidence in this week.
Yeah, I have to think that it's kind of an identity finder for all 3 teams.
Exactly.
You know what you want to do, but what can you do? I mean, we're far enough in the season where you can't blame an experience anymore. Kids have got to grow up, and it's what can we go out and be successful running? And I think all 3 teams need to find out that on both offense and defense. So it'd be very interesting week for them.
Yeah.
Now, the rest of the teams, they've got to have it all figured out.
Exactly.
Because it counts today. As Chaffin Marsh said, it's the season within the season.
Yeah.
And we'll start with District 1 5A. And Gulf Breeze and West Florida both traveling over to Panama City. Gulf Breeze taking on Arnold at 7 o'clock. The other game at 7 o'clock also, and that's West Florida going over to Bay. What do these 2 teams have to do to win these games?
Well, I think, first of all, going with Gulf Breeze, obviously they have to limit the big plays that Arnold's gonna get. It's a situation where they're gonna get the big plays. It's how many big plays is Arnold gonna get? I mean, they got 2 premier athletes in Eddie Williams and Andre Allen. Gulf Breeze has to stay within their game plan and not try to get into a shootout type game. I think they got to try to get manufacture some possessions here and there, maybe take some chances on defense as far as being aggressive, but definitely stay in their game plan, do what they do, and not try to match Arnold's 2 big players. Right. West Florida just needs to keep doing what they've been doing all year long, which is move the ball offensively and put pressure on the defense with their defense. It's interesting that both of these teams are kind of in a situation where they're trying to prove they belong, where Arnold has already been there, and Bay has been, around 500 for the last few years. So Bay and Arnold probably feel like these are games where they're going to take that next step towards district, where West Florida and Gulf Breeze is the same thing for them. They want to show that they're part of that district race now, that they're not just those 2 bottom feeder teams,
Right, and the thing about it is both teams have a legitimate chance of winning.
Yeah.
At this point last year, if either one of these teams go over to Panama City and win a game, it's somewhat considered an upset.
Upset, yeah.
Now, it's almost expected. Both teams have performed well early, so it would be interesting to see if they can get a win. 2 teams coming off losses and tough losses last week will play in District 2 6A. Niceville and Navarre probably considered the 2 favorites to win this district. It kind of shakes out early in 2 6A. And what do you expect to see over there?
Well, we talked about, with Coach Lashley at Navarre, he said that we kind of mentioned that everybody says this is the district championship game, pretty much Niceville and Navarre, and he said, love for this to be week 10. Look back and say it is. He said, but they can't afford to look at that right now. It's like we're 1-2. We're not a team that can afford to say we're playing for a district championship yet. So I think both teams just kind of need to bounce back from tough losses. Navarre had that game 1 against Pace last week, and just both teams really. Niceville had it 1-2. It's just a matter of whoever comes out and makes the fewest amount of mistakes and does what they need to do and kind of stay within themselves is going to win this game and obviously be in the driver's seat. That doesn't mean they're going to win the district. It just means that they'll have a leg up on everybody else in that district.
Yeah, winning this game would clear a significant hurdle, almost as if you have a game to give going forward. So it'd be a big win for either team. Both those teams lost to District 1 6A teams. Niceville lost to Pine Forest, and Navarre lost to Pace. Now those 2 teams will face off. It's almost like a tournament here.
Exactly.
Pace and Pine Forest, a marquee matchup this week to open 1 6A play. PHS also plays Milton, and Tate and Escambia will take each other on. All those games started at 7:30. Brady, you're going to be at the marquee matchup, the Pine Forest Pace. Let's talk about that one first. What can Pine Forest do to kind of I don't want to say right the ship, but get off to a better start, get off to a quick start in this game, and maybe, put some distance between them and Pace.
Well, that's what they're going to have to do. And it, to me, is going to be kind of like you said, get off to a good start, weather that early storm, because Pace is going to put pressure on them as far as just getting out there and being really physical and just kind of trying to intimidate them. Pine Forest kind of has to weather that early storm, not have any turnovers, because, obviously Pace is one of those teams we saw last week. They kind of like sharks, they smell blood, they go after it, and that's what they did to Navarre last week. They scored within a matter of 3 minutes. They scored 14 points and took the lead. So for Pine Forest, they just have to weather that early storm early, try to get some confidence early on, and not get to the point where they're falling behind early and because Pace is one of those teams where if you give them a lead, they're gonna take the air out of the ball. They're just gonna drive down the field. And they're gonna make it really slow and methodical. And Pine Forest kind of has to avoid that situation where they fall behind really early in that game.
Yeah, Pine Forest, one of those teams that depends on their athletes. Pace more of a punch you in the mouth sort of team. Last year this game was interesting because they went out first play of the game for Pine Forest, a little trick play, jump out early. Pace never recovered, just blew them right out of the game. So that'll be very interesting to see how this game starts. Another game, PHS is hosting Milton, and this surprisingly could be a defensive matchup. Milton playing great defense, PHS always a very strong defense. What's the difference on the offense here?
Well, I think the difference is experience. PHS has Jalen Spencer and Jimmy Threet, and Milton has a quarterback making his second start of the year, right, and some young guys around him. And I think PHS obviously is one of those teams that they'll wear you down. They'll just kind of keep leaning on you and keep leaning on you. But Milton has shown that they can play with everybody. I mean, this year, they've only given up 33 points on defense. So, Coach Morris says he loves the way his defense is playing right now. He says it's just a matter of getting that offense to kind of meet him. He said if we can get an offense to meet where our defense is right now, we could be a pretty dangerous team this year.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. If you can get the ball to Isaiah Jones, anytime you can get the ball to him. Catholic learned this the hard way last year. He scored 4 touchdowns against them. You get the ball in his hands, and they can win some football games. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there this week. Escambia got their first win of the year last week. Tate still looking for their first win. This could be one of those games where somebody could take some momentum from winning this first district game. Who do you like here?
Well, I think I like Escambia just for the fact that they are coming off of a win. But like you said, this is a game where both coaches are going to scream that we're 0-0 right at this point. If we win this one, and then like Coach Scott Anderson said, all you got to do is get to 2 in a row, and then worry about getting to 3 in a row, and then all of a sudden you kind of got a win streak going. You can't really worry about what you're going to be at the end of the year. You kind of have to worry about this one, and I think this is a game where both coaches could legitimately go into it and say, look, if we win this game, we have every bit of as much chance as everybody else because we're 1-0 just like everybody else. Right. Obviously, the team that loses in this district, when you lose that first one, you're behind the 8 ball already because everybody's kind of got that 1-game lead, and you already have Murderer's Row, so to speak, still ahead of you.
Right, moving the Grimsley to quarterback there could be a big difference for them. Maybe that's where they got their spark last week. Maybe that continues on. But one thing's for sure, you have to win this game if you're in that district because, man, that is a tough district going forward. Yeah, there's no way you lose this game.
You have to win the winnable games in that district. You have to beat the teams that you match up well with because you're going to have a hard time matching up with PHS, Pace, and Pine Forest. That's just a given. So when you're playing a Tate or an Escambia or a Washington, and we're not picking on those teams. We're just saying right now those teams are just a little bit below. When you play those games, you have to win, and I think the coaches would agree with that you have to win those games that are quote-unquote winnable on your schedule.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. It's a big week here. We look forward to finding out who wins these games. I'll be at PHS. You'll be over at Pine Forest for the 1620 News Journal Game of the Week. Paul Chestnut, Brady Amon on the call there.
Yeah.
You get Brady at pregame and halftime. So we will see you tomorrow for our postgame. Find out what we did right and what we did wrong. I believe I'm going to go 9-0 in the picks. Brady will go 8-1 since he disagreed with me one time.
Yeah.
And make sure you Breezers give him a call and give him a little hard time about that.
At least we'll get some separation. Yeah, finally, we haven't had separation all year, unless we have a tie.
We will not be tied going into next week. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason Blaney. This is Brady Amon, and y'all have a good night.